Welcome to Great Learning Masterclass. Today, we'll be taking you through essential mathematics for data science. About myself, I am Professor D. Narayana. I have done my graduation in mathematics, and post my graduation, I moved to data science practice. And for past 15 years, I have been practicing data science related applications. And the functional domains I touch based are finance, healthcare, retail, and text. So let us get into the agenda for today. So the agenda will start with the following. What are the common questions related to mathematics and data science people have? And then we'll get into case studies. We'll try to answer the questions we pose in common questions. Okay. The case studies we are going to touch base are predicting house prices, lockdown impact on COVID spread, and post-lockdown, how COVID spread has been. And fourth case study, can we detect COVID-19 using chest X-rays? When we go through these four case studies, majority of the questions in first slide will be answered. And after that, we'll get into probability and statistics related concepts, whatever are needed, then machine learning, then deep learning, and finally we touch base on model performance and optimization, what are the skills needed. Then at the end, we'll have question and answers. We'll have approximately 1 hour time for this. Let us get going. So what is data science? Data science is an interdisciplinary field that uses scientific methods, processes, algorithms, and systems to extract knowledge and insights from structured and unstructured data. So for example, when it comes to structured, you have tabular data. For structured, you have tabular data. For unstructured, you have text data, right? Text, videos, and structured, you have tabular data. Okay, something like say the data you store in Excel sheets, the data you store in .csv files could be treated as structured. The data you store in WhatsApp or like your Facebook, okay, all the data could be treated as unstructured data. Now, data science is related to mining the data, deep learning, and big data. Okay, and you see, like here, the data size is going to be pretty huge. Some of telecom companies, for a day, they're extracting or they're collecting data close to 100 terabytes. Okay, now we need to come up with the skills needed to handle this data and extract knowledge from the data. In the next slide, let us get into the skills needed to succeed in data science. So, data scientist, the sexiest job of 21st century, requires a mixture of multidisciplinary skills ranging from mathematics, statistics, computer science, communication, and business. So let us get into the skills and then see, like, can we actually have some common skills, say for example, math and stats, programming, functional domain, and then presentation, right? So from math and stat point of view, the user needs to be proficient in stat models, experimental design, optimization techniques, which includes gradient descent and its variants. And then you have supervised and unsupervised learning techniques. In supervised and unsupervised learning techniques, you'll have a whole lot of classification, regression, clustering, dimensional reduction techniques. And then when it comes to programming, data scientists need to have the programming experience as well. Predominantly, nowadays, people are focusing, clients are focusing on Python. Okay. And also, since you'll be playing with the data, so the data scientist needs to know about databases as well. Since the data size will be huge, knowing Hadoop technologies would be always beneficial, okay, but it's not mandatory. Since most of the development and the production is through cloud platforms nowadays, so clients ask for experience with cloud platforms. So you should be right from the first day, you should be using Google Colab or AWS. This would help you in your job search and also succeeding in job. On functional domain, soft skills point of view, you need to be curious about the data. You should be able to make friendship with the data. And you should be passionate about the business. You should be very good problem solver. You should have hacker mindset. You should have strategic, innovative, proactive, creative, and collaborative mindset. Then last one, but very important, communication and visualization. Most of the data scientists, they do very good modeling and implementation, but they fail in delivering a good documentation, good report. And that's where their product would be valued less than what it actually deserves. So here in communication and visualization, if data scientist is proficient with either Tableau or Power BI or D3.js or the visualization tools in Python or R. Okay, Python or R-based visualization tools are also fine. And data scientists should be having the storytelling skills. When he sees the data and when he actually completes the modeling, he should be able to tell the story about the problem what he has in hand. And then he should be able to translate that data-driven insights into data. And by the way, I'll be showcasing in case studies the points like how to tell story, how to translate the data-driven insights into decision and actions. Okay, and in this particular presentation, we'll be predominantly focusing on the math and stats needed to succeed in data science. And in that process, we'll be exposing you to storytelling and data-driven insights. Okay, now let us get into the common questions what every data scientist asks about required math in data science. So one of the first questions what people ask is, what role does mathematics play in data science? Very relevant question. How much mathematical depth is needed for data science? Does data science need statistics? How important is mathematical modeling for data scientists? How good do you to be in mathematics to be a good data scientist? How can I learn data science with no math background? And by the way, this question we often hear from many people. As a beginner in data science, should I learn the math behind ML algos or just how to use the underlying techniques? How do I become a data scientist if I'm already having a math major? How do I develop the math background which is needed to succeed in data science? These are common questions what majority of data scientists are going to be data scientists ask. And we'll be answering these questions through case studies. And whatever is remaining, like say if you still have some questions, please post those questions in our chat. And we'll be taking up those questions at the end of the presentation. Now let us get into case studies. The first case study is predicting house prices. Say for example, I have the following data, wherein I have the area of the house in square feet, and the neighborhood where the house is located, and the number of bedrooms in the house, and the price of the house in thousands of rupees. So as soon as I have these data points, okay, so for few houses, I have these data points. Say for example, house number 1, house number 2, okay, so house number 5, house number 100. Okay, I collected these data points. Okay, fine. Now what can I do with this? You should be able to now come up with insights. Okay, what can you deliver to your client with this data? Okay, one of the requirements what client has is the following. If there is any house which is like say which has come to him, okay, say for example that house area is 1250 square feet and it is in Gachibowli, Hyderabad, and the number of bedrooms in that house 3. And now, how do you evaluate the house? What is the price? Can you come up with these data points? The house area is 1250 and the neighborhood is Gachibowli, Hyderabad. Number of bedrooms 3. And what would be the house price? Can you predict it? Okay, and this is the problem statement what we have now. Okay, the problem statement you have to come up with. Okay, the requirement now you have to come up with, right? So say for example, now I have the requirement. How do I go about and solve it? Okay, so now I have to get into the modeling part. So I have the house data, right? And we have to write a program and give it to the computer. And the computer should be able to predict the house prices, right, accurately. Predicting just house price is not going to be sufficient. The price has to be accurate so that you can use it for your clients, right? And now, what will machine try to build? Okay, yes, we want this, but what the machine will try to build? It is very interesting now. So we want to predict the house using what? The area of the house, number of bedrooms in the house, and the neighborhood. Using these three features, we want to build a model to predict the house prices, right? And here, if you actually look at it, there are unknowns. I mean, W1, W2, W3, these three parameters we do not know as of now. Okay, so we are coming up with a model. And by the way, this is very, very simple model, what we have studied in 10th standard, +1 and +2. So it is very similar to, if you recall, our coordinate geometry, y equals to mx plus c, a line passing through a data point, right? It is very similar to y equals to mx plus c, but with more parameters. Instead of one variable x, now we have three variables: square feet, number of bedrooms, and neighborhood, right? And so let me actually go a little bit into the notation. Now I can write the above equation into a simple mathematical equation. You see here, y equals to w1x1 plus w2x2 plus w3x3. And if you see here, x1 is square feet, x2 is bedrooms, and x3 is neighborhood, right? Now this is our model. Okay, this is one of the models what we can come up with. Of course, there are a number of other models as well. Okay, as of now, let us stick to this model. Yes, I have this one. Now, how do I find out? How do I find out W1, W2, W3? If these three parameters, if I'm able to find accurately, that means to say the predicted price for the house, if it is very good, I mean, if it is matching with the actual house price, then the model is treated as best model. If the predicted house price is completely haywire and it doesn't match with the reality, then the model is treated as bad model. Okay. Now, how do we actually come up with good model? Right. So for this, now you'll be using elementary mathematics, what we have studied again in +2. Okay. So let us talk about loss and gradient descent. So let me define what is loss. So loss is nothing but our model has predicted house price, right? So it has predicted house price. Say for example, for the ith house, it has predicted. And on the data, what you already have on historical data, you already know what is the price of the house. So actual price, let me say, okay, actual price. And say for example, you have 100 house data already with you, right? Now you can calculate this difference, take the squared sum, okay, sum it, and then take the average. And once we have this squared sum and average, now you see, if this particular quantity, if it is very small, that means our predicted prices are very close to actual prices, right? That means whenever this quantity is less, we call it as, like say, the model is very good. Whenever this quantity is big, the model is not good. That means now the target actually becomes as follows: minimize loss. Okay, we have to minimize loss. And once we minimize the loss, and whatever model we get at the end, that model is the best model. That's it. Okay. Now, how do we minimize the loss? It is easier said than done, right? So, and by the way, we don't need to worry. And in fact, after like say next 2-3 lines, you will actually realize that whatever you already know the mathematics, that's more than sufficient to solve this problem. So what is the target? We have to find optimal model parameters, which are nothing but W1, W2, W3 in our present problem. We have to find optimal model parameters to minimize the above loss, right? So now if you actually look at, if you look at the next equation, okay, if you look at the next equation, now we are actually writing it as something like the old model parameters, take old model parameters and take the derivative of loss with respect to model parameters, and then multiply with something called learning rate. Eta is learning rate. Okay. And then you get the new weights. And this is exactly what we actually followed in our derivatives class, in multivariable calculus class. Okay. So now using these W new weights, okay, take these new weights and put it back into our model. We again get new loss calculated. Okay. And then repeat this particular process. Okay. At the end, we actually get very good model with the least loss. And by the way, once we have this W new, okay, let us see with a couple of examples, okay, how it proceeds. Say, for example, you have a function f of x equals to x square into sine x. Can you find out the minimum of f? Minimum of f. Okay, the minimum actually is here. Okay, start with some point. Okay, start with some point and follow this. I mean the x updation approach. That means x new equals to, okay, x new equals to x old minus learning rate eta into d by dx of f of x old. Okay, and here we have taken like say iteration 15, iteration 20, and now it is actually moved till iteration 50. Okay, by the time we are able to compute this x new 50 times, we are able to get the minimum value of f. Very, very simple. And this particular method is called gradient descent method. Okay, and if you actually see, this is the most used method in machine learning and also in deep learning. Okay, and if you observe, this particular method we already studied in +2, and if you have done engineering, in engineering first year engineering, you have actually done engineering mathematics, there also you revisit the same method, right? And one more example, I mean with the same f of x equals to x square into sine x, if you take different learning rate, okay, say for example eta equals to 0.001 or eta equals to 0.05, okay, if you take two different learning rates, okay, you will actually land up with a different way of convergence to the minimum, right? And now let us actually get going. So you have your gradient descent. From gradient descent, you updated your weights. That means W new. Okay. After you updated your weights, you again calculated the loss. And once you have calculated the loss, again you actually got it to gradient descent. Okay. You repeat this process multiple times. Once you do multiple times, I mean to say, once you do it multiple iterations, you are going to get very interesting solution. Okay. That's what it is. Okay, and if you actually see, this is W1, this is W2, and this is W3. Okay, now as soon as you have square feet equals to 1250 square feet, number of bedrooms 3, okay, and neighborhood Gachibowli. Now we can actually get the house price predicted. You see, in very, very simple steps and using elementary mathematics, we are able to solve one of the pressing problems in industry. Okay, and of course now you can actually think from coming up with the new models. Okay, when you start increasing the complexity of the model, of course the needed skills they increase. Fine. So this is one case study we have completed now. Okay, predicting the house prices. with 3 features. And the kind of mathematics we have used, just gradient descent, right? Just gradient descent. This is the mathematics we have used. Okay, and this particular gradient descent is covered in 12th standard, right? And by the way, with this much of mathematics, you will be able to do wonders in data science. And of course, if you know even deeper mathematics, you will do even bigger wonders. Okay, now let us get into the next case study. So next 3 case studies are going to be focused on COVID-19. One of the reasons why we have taken COVID-19 is the problems you should actually feel relevant to the present situation, what we are facing in the society or present industry of problems, so that we can easily get connected, right? So government has come up with lockdown to control the spread of the virus. Okay, and many people actually started commenting in different ways. Okay, we being data scientists, we have to be making quantitative statements, unlike politicians, right? Now let us define our problem. Okay, the problem definition what we have is evaluate if a nationwide lockdown has emerged to be an effective way to contain the transmission of the virus, to contain the spread of the virus. Fine. Now, this is the problem definition. It is very easy to make this definition. Okay. Now, what kind of mathematical techniques can be used to solve the problem? Well, you'll be surprised to see you'll be able to solve this problem using very, very simple mathematical techniques. Fine. So let us get going. So let us formulate a hypothesis. What is our hypothesis? Let us make our null hypothesis. What we make in that null hypothesis, there is no difference in growth rate of the virus before the lockdown and after the lockdown. Okay, that is null hypothesis. And what is the alternative hypothesis? The growth rate after lockdown is significantly different or significantly less than that of growth rate before the lockdown. That means the lockdown has impacted containing the spread of the virus, right? So now we'll be able to either support the lockdown or fail to support the lockdown, right? So let us get going and see like what would be the conclusion. Okay, and by the way, all data science problems are driven by the data in the backend, right? So for this, for this particular problem, there is enough data available in open source. And in fact, India has released the data, and the data is available in COVID-19 India.org. Okay, you can go to this website and start downloading the data and practice whatever ideas I'm actually mentioning now. Okay, so for this particular problem, we have taken 8 countries' data. Okay, not only India, we have considered other countries' data as well. Okay, and so what we have taken is we have taken data from March 1st till May end, till April end. Okay, we have taken data from March 1st to April end, and we actually government imposed lockdown on March 25th. Okay, so what we have actually done is every day you get the number of infected people, right? Government releases this number. So say for example, on May 20th or March 20th, okay, you have number of infected people. And now you have on March 21st, you have number of infected people. Now what you do is you take the ratio March 21st infected people divided by March 20th infected people. Okay, this is the growth rate what we are actually looking at. And this number, if you actually see, since the number of cases are increasing, this ratio is always greater than 1. Right? Now we want to see whether this rate before the lockdown and after the lockdown, is there any significant difference statistically or no? Right? So that's what we have actually taken. Okay. And on the x-axis, you have the dates, and on the y-axis, you have the growth rate, right? And for like see, for mathematical purposes, we have taken the average growth rate. last 3 days growth rate you take, and average is going to be 2 days. And for tomorrow, today, and yesterday, you take the average of these 3 days, and that would be tomorrow's average growth rate. Okay, that's how we have taken. And then we have gone into statistical hypothesis test, and we have proved statistically that lockdown has controlled the virus spread quite a bit. Okay, and if you see before the lockdown, the spread used to be at this level, and after the lockdown, the spread actually came down. Okay, it's not just for one country. It actually, we tested 8 countries, and all 8 countries actually shown the similar pattern. But where they differ is India actually started showing the pattern. I mean, started showing significant down in virus spread after 15 days of lockdown. Okay, some other countries like say Germany, Italy, UK, they started showing different levels of impact. I mean, UK started showing virus spread down after 9 days of lockdown, right? So this is how we actually evaluated and we analyzed the spread of the virus. Fine. And what are the techniques we have used? We have used a simple statistical hypothesis test. Okay, statistical hypothesis test. That's it. And this is like say with this testing, we are able to tell whether the decision taken by government is meaningful or not statistically. Right? And now what are the inferences? The inferences are based on statistical techniques and linear regression. And of course, we have used one more technique called linear regression, whatever we had seen in house price prediction. Okay, that particular model is called linear regression model. Okay. Using statistical techniques and linear regression model analysis, it is evident that social distancing measures such as nationwide lockdown deployed in different countries play a major role to mitigate the spread of the virus through different channels. Hypothesis testing proved that there is a significant decrease in the daily growth rate after the lockdown as compared to the daily growth rate before the lockdown. Right? The spread also has dependency on other factors such as country, time of the lockdown was imposed, okay, infection periods, population, demography for different countries. Some countries are showing infection periods are approximately 9 days. After 9 days, the spread started coming down after 9 days of lockdown imposed. Whereas some other countries started showing the virus spread coming down after 12 days or 15 days. Okay, the doubling days. I mean, the number of days it has taken to double the infected number of people. Say, for example, today, number of COVID cases today reported by Government of India is 25,560. Right. So, what do we mean by doubling it? How many days does it take to have 51,000 number of infected cases? Right, and the days it takes to basically have this number. Okay, that's what we are saying, number of doubling days, right? The doubling days are increasing after the imposition of lockdown. This is one very striking feature. That means government could actually control the spread of the virus with lockdown. And this doubling rate is actually, we could observe that it is different for different countries. Okay, and now you see, this case study also, we have used a simple hypothesis test to solve the problem. Okay, now let us move on to the next case study. Okay, in this particular case study, we are going to study the positive rate analysis. Okay, what does it mean by positive rate analysis? If you actually see, today, I mean last 24 hours, Government of India has conducted 2,60,000 odd tests, okay, for COVID. And the number of infected cases we got are 25,560. Okay, so approximately we have 9% positive cases, right? So now what does it mean? Okay, so whether what can, like say, what are the states which are actually doing well when it comes to this positive rate, and what are the countries which are not doing well when it comes to positive rate, right? We want, like say for example, for 2,60,000 cases, I mean 2,60,000 tests, we got 25,560 positive cases, right? And now if you do more tests, whether we are going to get more cases detected, or if you do less tests, we are going to get less cases detected. And in fact, the story actually is slightly different. Okay, so let me actually get into the problem definition. Okay, in the growing phase of pandemic COVID-19, it is important to understand the positive testing positive rate and its impact on identifying the rising number of COVID-19 cases across various states in India. Right? So testing positive rate is the rate at which positive cases are identified from COVID-19 testing population. What is the problem definition now? Evaluate the testing positive rate. Testing positive rate is nothing but, so you have 25,560 positive cases for 2,60,000 odd cases. Okay, and this is for today, right? The rate for today. Now, for each day, we can calculate this. And by the way, these numbers are available if you go to covid19india.org website. Okay, you also can calculate and start analyzing the inferences what I am actually showing you here. Okay, and now the next sub-problem in our problem definition is forecast the expected number of positive cases for next 1 to 2 weeks for the top 5 severely affected states of India. So we have two problems. One is evaluate the testing positive rate, and second is forecast the expected number of positive cases for next 2 weeks for top 5 states in India, right? So now another important point, okay, the theme of the present today's talk is what are the mathematical techniques that can be used to solve the above problem. Okay, and you'll realize that at the end, the kind of techniques we use to solve this problem is amazingly simple. Right? So we have taken India for our study. Okay, and we have considered the following 5 states: Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, Delhi, Gujarat, and Uttar Pradesh. The reason why we have taken these 5 states is these 5 states are severely affected with the number of positive cases. Okay, that's why we have taken these 3 states. And now when we actually come up with analysis, okay, right from April 8th, okay, April 8th till July 1st. Okay, when we came up with analysis, okay, we calculated the daily rate for all these 5 states. You see, Maharashtra is having 22.5% positive rates. That means if there are 100 tests done in Maharashtra, approximately 22 people are getting tested positive. In Delhi, it is 12.6%. That means out of 100 tests done, 12 people are getting tested positive. In Tamil Nadu, it's similar to Delhi, right? Gujarat is no different, right? And now if you actually see this top 5 states average is turning out to be 10%. That means to say out of 100 people tested in these 5 states put together, 10 people are getting tested positive, which is seriously alarming. Okay, whereas the rest of the India average is 2.8%. That means to say out of 100 people tested, only 3 people are getting tested positive. Okay, so that means these 5 states are seriously affected. Okay, and by the way, here for mathematical reasons, we are actually taking moving average, last 3 days moving average, as I mentioned in lockdown case study as well. Okay, now, if I actually present this analysis slightly differently, okay, you see the top 5 states are contributing to 71% of total number of cases, whereas remaining states are contributing only 29% of total positive cases. Okay, average of top 5 states is actually coming out as 11.1%. Okay, and whereas our rest of all states put together is coming out to be 4.8%. which is, like, say, seriously low, right? And now if you actually come up with like, say, the analysis, okay, to forecast into the future next 2 weeks, how many cases would be there, how many tests would be done. Okay, if you actually see this analysis we have done on 1st of July. Okay, and now the kind of techniques we have used are ACF and PSCF. ACF stands for autocorrelation function, PACF stands for partial autocorrelation function, and ARIMO, autoregressive integrated moving average. Very simple techniques these are. Okay, and then using these techniques, we could predict down the line 2 weeks what would be the number of cases for Maharashtra, and then we have like say Tamil Nadu, Delhi, Gujarat, Uttar Pradesh, and rest of India. And by the way, now you can actually open the case. By the way, this is number of tests done. Okay, you can actually open and then sum up all these things. It would come approximately 2 lakhs 40,000 approximately, right? So, and today number of cases if you actually look at in that website, Government of India has done 2 lakh 60,000 cases, or 2 lakh 60,000 tests done. And then when you come up with the forecast done, okay, for next 2 weeks, this is also amazing for all 5 states and also rest of India put together. Okay, and now if you actually see the kind of techniques we have used are amazingly simple. Autocorrelation function, partial autocorrelation function, and autoregressive integrated moving average. These are simple techniques. And using simple techniques, now we are able to predict the number of cases. Okay, now the inferences. Okay, so here as on 3rd July 2020, at India level, top 5 states with highest number of COVID cases are severely impacted, and their average test positive rate is alarming. Okay, for Maharashtra itself, it is 22.5%. Okay, followed by Delhi 12.6%. Okay, states like Maharashtra, Delhi, and Gujarat also had lots of international travel returnees. Okay, and that could be another reason why they got, like say, a high number of positive cases. Other than top 5 states, lot of positive cases are coming since all states are increasing their testing capabilities. Right after easing the lockdown, people migration, I mean the labor migration started at large scale from these top 5 impacted states, which is also a major reason for increasing the hotspots in rural area. Okay, at India level, 72% of all cases are coming from these 5 states, and 29% is contributed by remaining states. As for current statistical trends, from Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, Delhi, these states increased their daily testing, due to which they started getting larger number of positive cases detected. This approach could be followed by other countries in India, other states in India, to identify positive cases sooner in order to control the pandemic. This will help to curb the community transmission, right? And so it is actually very interesting. Okay, yeah. Now coming to the next one. Next use case is COVID-19 detection using chest X-rays. Okay, and if you see the 3 use cases, whatever we have done so far. Okay, one is house price prediction, and second is lockdown impact on COVID spread. Third is positive rate post the lockdown. Okay, in fact, it is not post the lockdown, positive rate analysis. Okay, and also predicting the number of positive cases, right? And now let us get into 4th use case or case study. Okay, COVID detection. Can we detect COVID using chest X-rays? And by the way, it is actually a very interesting problem. And so far, whatever the data you have used the tabular data, right? And first time you're talking about images in use case, right? So let us see whether we'll be able to do it, right? And then to do this particular use case, I mean to solve this particular business problem, what kind of mathematical techniques needed, right? So, and by the way, the data set for this particular use case, you can actually get it from TechSpot website, and this is actually coming from Stanford University, or you can download it from Kaggle as well. And also there is one interesting data set for COVID. Okay, from this data set, from this website also you can download. And we have built several models to detect COVID from chest X-rays. And let me actually present the process at which the process we followed to build the model and also the results. The process we followed is like say any given X-ray first detect it as healthy or not healthy, right? Once you identify it as not healthy, now identify whether the non-healthy person is due to pneumonia or non-pneumonia. Okay, if it is non-pneumonia, she will go through different process for the diagnosis and medication. Okay, if he is suffering from pneumonia, again now check whether that pneumonia is induced by COVID, induced by COVID or non-COVID. Right? If the pneumonia is induced by COVID, then this is like say serious problem. Immediately he needs to be taken care and given proper medical care, right? And now if you actually look at this particular one, how much time does it take to detect as soon as the X-ray is taken? Less than 1 second. And approximately how much money does it cost? Well, less than 200 rupees. And if you actually look at the present test, it is like say enormous, right? It is actually in lakhs as of now. And just for this test, I think as of now, the amount of money they are collecting is of 5,000 rupees. Okay. The test it is like say each test is costing 5,000 rupees, right? And so this is actually, well, one can actually come up with other models as well. Okay. And now the results what we have got. Okay. We used a model called VGG16, and by the way, this model is well known, and this is one of the computer vision techniques. Okay, computer vision techniques. Okay, using images, can you detect the pattern? That's what we have done here, and we have used another model as well, ResNet 50, and we have trained these two models for using these data sets I mentioned in the previous slide, and the accuracy we got is amazing. Say, for example, out of 84 COVID patients, we could detect, out of 100 COVID patients, we could detect 84 of them correctly using VGG16. And using ResNet 50, we could detect 80 of them correctly. Okay, and the detailed results, okay, we have it here. So, how many were actually COVID? Okay, how many were detected by our system? Okay, now we can actually map them and you can see like say how good is our model is, right? And this particular matrix is called as confusion matrix. As a data scientist, you have to present your results like this, right? And also this metric also is expected from the data scientist. Okay, by the way, what are the mathematical techniques we have used to solve this problem? Very, very simple. Okay, the nomenclature, what you can use for this is at broad level, these are neural networks. Okay, and what are the mathematical techniques inside those neural networks? It will be difficult to believe at this stage, but the techniques behind these neural networks are nothing but gradient descent, okay, followed by optimization techniques. Fine. Very, very simple techniques. And by the way, of course, you need to have the business intuition to build the models and to train them. Okay. And now, what are the conclusions from this case study? We have, like say, using the proposed AI techniques based on the workflow we have presented in the previous slide, we are in a position to analyze the patient's condition using X-rays by spending minimal time of radiologists and patient's money. These sorts of solutions are needed for countries like India, where the population size is huge, right? And now, with this, we'll complete our 4 case studies. Okay. Now, let us actually see what are the important steps we have followed in data science. I mean, in those 4 case studies, the steps we have followed. First, we identified an interesting problem for the given data. And then we articulate an answer in conceptual terms. Okay, make the answer precise using math. Okay, say for example, we actually did it y equals to W1 into square feet of house, right? Plus W2 into number of bedrooms, right? Plus W3 into neighborhood, right? So we actually try to answer the answer using mathematics. Explore what assumptions are needed to make the math work. And then we try to actually come up with the model, the mathematical model with all the ideas, whatever we discussed earlier. And then finally, we came up with inferences and conclusions. Okay, these are important steps in any data science problem. Okay, now having said all this, let us see from topic wise in mathematics, what are the techniques which are needed, right? Say, for example, if you come up with probability and statistics, what are the techniques we have used? We'll see. Okay. And by the way, probability and statistics, they are at the foundation level for data science. Without this, we'll not be able to move forward. Okay. These techniques, probability and statistical techniques, will help us separating significance from randomness. That means, is there a pattern in the data or there is no pattern in the data? We'll be able to identify using probability and statistics. Fine. And now in probability and statistics, what are the things what we need? Probability calculations, conditional probability. Okay, conditional probability is, say for example, a person is having cough, okay, and cold. Okay, what is the probability that the person has COVID? Right? So based on, let's say, given that he has symptoms, what is the probability that he has COVID? Given that he has symptoms and he came from COVID infected area, what is the probability that he will have COVID? Okay, so those sort of conditional probabilities we need to we should be able to calculate, and then we need to be able to calculate confidence intervals the way we had done it in third use case, and hypothesis test the way we had done it in second use case, and similar variance related analysis. Okay, this much of probability and statistics is sufficient for us. Okay, and also some people treat the ARIMA models, whatever we actually used in third use case, this ARIMA models also people treat it as part of statistics. Okay, if you are treating it as part of statistics, yes, ARIMA related models also you can study. This much of probability and statistics is sufficient for us. And of course, some people may tell, like, say, can I get theoretical probability? Yes, of course. Any extra understanding of mathematics, I mean, probability and statistics is always going to help you. And then when it comes to machine learning, okay, when it comes to machine learning includes our supervised, unsupervised learning, okay, supervised and unsupervised learning techniques. Okay, in our case studies, what are the machine learning techniques we have used? In our first use case, we have used something called linear regression. Okay, this is a one simple machine learning technique. Okay, and for this kind of problems, you need data sampling techniques in order to train the model. Okay, you should be able to calculate the conditional probabilities, and you should be proficient in linear algebra. Not at PhD level, you should be able to play with matrices and vectors. Vector multiplication, addition, vector matrix multiplication, and matrix multiplication, inverses of matrices, determinant of matrices, and solving systems of linear equations is more than sufficient. Okay, and then there is some interesting thing called multivariate calculus. You should be proficient with gradient descent. That's more than sufficient. And also with optimization algorithms to fine tune the model. That's more than sufficient. Okay, and then when it comes to deep learning, our fourth case study, detecting COVID using chest X-rays. Okay, so data sampling techniques definitely needed, and now the data processing techniques, like say processing image, processing text, is needed. Linear algebra is at the heart of data deep learning. Multivariate calculus, I mean gradient descent and optimization. Okay, these are the needed techniques to succeed in deep learning. Okay, and then how do we fine tune the model? Okay, so fine tuning the model, you should be able to play with the data sampling techniques, and you should be able to play with optimization techniques. Optimization techniques, like say minimizing the loss, okay, and coming up with the different sets of parameters. That's more than sufficient. Okay, so what we have done so far, we have done the following. We try to analyze the kind of mathematics needed to solve the business problems. And we have taken 4 use cases in answering all those 4 questions, all those 9 questions what we had in the early slides. Okay, so what is the summary now? The summary is you do not need to be a PhD in math to get into data science. Okay, the basic probability and statistical techniques needed to succeed in data science, we have gone through using use cases. And we analyzed the linear algebra techniques, whatever needed. I mean, matrix and vector, when you take vector addition, multiplication, vector matrix multiplication, matrix multiplication, matrix addition, and solving systems of linear equation. That's more than sufficient. And then the basic calculus needed to find out the optimal parameters of the model. And then we got into something called multivariate calculus. Okay, multivariate calculus, why it is needed? In our first use case, we had 3 variables, right? I mean, 3 weights to be updated, 3 model parameters to be updated. And wherever we have more than 1 model parameter to be updated, the underlying calculus, we call it as multivariate calculus. Okay, so the multivariate calculus here, whatever you need, it's just simple gradient descent in multivariables. Okay, and that's it. And in fact, now if you actually go back and see our questions, whatever we actually posed in early slides, okay, most of the questions are answered. Okay, and the remaining, whatever is pending, let us take it up as part of the question and answers. When we start working on industry relevant case studies, like say we have taken COVID, which is one of the pressing problems in the industry, right? And when you solve these sort of problems, 1 or 2, then you yourself feel like, say, yes, now I'm able to solve industry problems and let me get going. Okay, so the case studies you have to take they have to be industry relevant. Okay, instead of taking something like, say, can I classify the flower category? Okay, I mean using iris dataset, one of the datasets we follow in data science. Of course, as part of small case studies, that is fine, but you need to do few industry case studies. Definitely you can actually shift, but you have to be little careful. Okay, when you are shifting, you have to take up the case study in such a way that your earlier experience should help us. I mean, the AI techniques in testing. Okay, and also, can you actually automate the testing? And if you actually take up that sort of thing, it will be a lot more beneficial. Okay, and of course, if testing is not exciting you, you can move on to other fields. Of course, you can actually show it, but as of now, this is out of the scope. Okay, we can actually study all those actuation functions. So here, the case studies, whatever we try to answer, okay, whether lockdown has controlled the spread during that period. Yes, it has controlled during the lockdown, and post lockdown, it actually, we can see that the testing positive rate, it actually has increased. Okay, and now beyond that, if I actually make any comment, it may become a little bit political. Okay, I'll step away from that one. Okay, yes, of course, post lockdown, we have, like, say, the cases have increased definitely. Okay, and now whether we have delayed the peak because of that is difficult to answer at this stage. Yes, theory of computation is definitely important for data science students, but it depends. Say, for example, if you are coming from computer science background and you are focusing more on improving the model performance and reducing that amount of time it takes to run a model. Okay, if you are in that sort of role, yes, computation, I mean, theory of computation is going to play key role. Okay, you can actually, in general, if you are proficient with R and Python, okay, now Python is leading the race. If you are proficient with R and Python from programming language point of view, and from visualization software's point of view, Tableau, okay, and if you are handling big data, getting Hadoop technologies also will help you. Okay, this much of technology should be sufficient. And if you are using databases, getting into some sort of NoSQL database will always be an advantage. You can actually always start with, say for example, some of the references. Okay, you can look at the following. Okay, introduction to statistical analysis. Okay, introduction to statistical analysis. Okay, introduction to statistical analysis by Tipsirani. Okay, and Heste. And this book would be one of the interesting books to start with. And also, when you actually get into, like say, Great Learning Masterclass, you have a lot of free videos available. Okay, you can go through the mathematics related videos, and that also will help you. And also, don't get into advanced mathematics at this stage if you are not already done. Okay. Basic mathematics, I mean, till +2 is more than sufficient for us. Well, so here, like say, weekend math is not something bad. You have like say other techniques as well to focus on, right? One is like say programming, and then you have functional domain, and you have like say visualization and storytelling. Okay, you can focus on those as well. And if you particularly want to improve your mathematical skills, okay, what you can actually do is pick up linear algebra. Okay, linear algebra, something like say by Professor Kumaresan. Okay, this is a very simple sweet book. Okay, you can read this one, and this will give you the confidence for linear algebra. And linear algebra is one of the important things to get into deep learning. Okay, and then second thing is you can get into gradient descent. Okay, this is a simple derivative technique. Okay, gradient descent, right? And these two should be more than sufficient from calculus point of view. And from probability point of view, okay, you can actually look at business statistics by Professor PK. Okay, PK Viswanathan. Make sense? Knowing the probability and the statistics with, let's say, I mean, average skill, unless you put hard work, okay, now coming up with a successful data science career is not easy. Okay, and this is true for any field, right? You have to put extra effort to learn and to practice. Okay, now if you put, like say for example, maybe for a week, if you put approximately some 25 hours effort in learning these things, the probability of a person with average knowledge in probability and statistics would be more than 75%. Majority of the problems follow the following category. Okay, one is either regression, okay, regression or classification or grouping. Okay, say for example, when we are predicting the house price, it is a number we are going to predict, right? So that's what we mean by regression technique. When you are saying whether a person is having COVID or not having COVID, we are saying yes or no. That is, we are classifying a patient, right? So that is classification technique. And now if you say, like say, I have group of patients, I want to actually separate them into, say, young and old. Okay, you are separating them into two groups, young and old. Okay, those sort of grouping, you call it as clustering. Okay, so when you actually start reading the problem, I mean reading the data and then trying to see what is needed, immediately will identify the problems into either regression, classification or grouping. Well, some of the most used techniques in data science are gradient descent, okay, hypothesis test, okay. And in gradient descent, I mean, gradient descent is a mathematical technique, right? And if you actually look at the data science technique point of view, I mean, either regression or classification, if you answer that question from that point of view, most used data science technique is classification. Most used mathematical technique is gradient descent. in fact, there is nothing like a best model for all the problems. Okay, it all depends on the data set what we have in hand. Say for example, if you have image data set, the kind of techniques you use to answer the image data set would be different from the kind of techniques you use to answer the question if you are using Tableau data. Okay, so most of the time what is happening is after the deep learning came into the main market. Okay, so we use mostly convolutional neural networks for images. Okay, and sequential models for sequence data and text data. Okay, so hope that answers your question, Hitul. And any further questions, whatever people have, please send across to our Great Learning, okay, team, and we'll get back to you.